Welcome to Module 1, Lawyer Marketing School. Let's get ready to fire your agency. In this module, we're going to be talking all about website foundations. I'm joined today by Cesar Cobo. He's a partner in our agency. He also handles all of our website SEO stuff, so he's going to be helping me go through this material today. So again, we're starting here with website foundations. So what we're going to be covering here, website design, website development, what you should be putting on your website. We're not going to go too much into content writing. That's going to fall more into the SEO portion of this, but we'll be touching on a lot of the foundations, architecture of what your website should be. Now, if you have a website, great, you can layer this on top, but if you don't have a website, perfect. We're going to show you how to get your website built from start to scratch, because websites are one of the most overpriced things when it comes to getting your stuff done. You'll probably get quotes from $20,000 to $50,000. We're going to show you how to get it done for less than a couple $1,000s with the exact same quality. Going to give you everything that you need to do that. So let's dive in. So again, website foundations here. Websites are so important because it's really the last touch point with traffic before somebody becomes a client, right? Now, there's other places where people might convert. They might send you a DM on Instagram. They might call you from Google Business Profile, but for the most part, a very large majority of your leads are going to have to flow through your website before they get in contact with you. And that's why it's so important, right? It's your last touch point before visitors become leads. So we want to make sure that we're giving them the right structure, the right information, so they're not wasting your time when they're calling you. So let's talk quickly, Cesar, about what matters. I got a picture of John Morgan's website here. I was actually just on their website and they redesigned it. It's amazing. So you'll be seeing a lot of references throughout this. But like I said, it's the final touch point, right? So for the most part, pretty much every channel is going to flow through your website. So there's a lot of conversion elements that we want to have here, but also content and information. I think this is important, Cesar. I say this a lot to clients, is that good design doesn't necessarily mean more leads. A lot of the times I see quote unquote over-designed websites. We get a lot of website leads in and people are like, oh, like, we had a client actually where he was like, I want to have like moving graphics and videos and all this type of stuff. It can slow down performance. For the most part in the legal space, people are looking for information. They're not looking to be entertained.
I think for the most part, your design should reflect your audience. So if you're a personal injury lawyer, you're going to have a different audience than if you're a high net worth divorce lawyer. So the design there should take into account who the audience is, what it is that they're expecting to see when they land on your website. Yeah,
for sure. Your website structure, content, messaging matter more. We're going to talk about all that. So we're going to move into now to just the specific pages on your website. Again, what is the infrastructure that your website should have? Before we talk about colors, fonts, all that type of stuff, we need to talk about the nuts and bolts. And before I do that too, I want to talk about some concepts that you should know. A lot of what I want for you to get from this program is context, right? A lot of you are going to go through this and say, this is way too much, Ryan. I'm not going to do this on my own. But at the very least, I want you to walk away with information for you to be lethal when having conversations with agencies. We're two lifelong agency people here. We've been doing this for over 10 years together. And we'll be the first to tell you that agencies are going to rip you off. I always give the example of, I actually just took my car into the shop last week and they were texting me and they were like, hey, like you got some issues with this, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be $300. I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. Just, I don't know what that is. And when you don't know, you get taken advantage of in a sense, right? So it's the same thing with agencies, right? So I want you to understand these concepts so you can have informed conversations where if you do decide to hire an agency, at least now you know what you need to own, right? And this is especially important here because, Cesar, we see this all the time, right? So number one here, if you want to talk a little about the importance of owning your own domain in website hosting, because a lot of the times we see agencies that are predatory that will make you pay a monthly fee for hosting, and it's to me the biggest scam in the legal marketing industry.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely want to own your what we call digital assets or digital properties, things like hosting, things like your domain name itself, your DNS. There's certain things that you need to insist that you have full control over. Even your Google properties. We've seen cases where people have their Google Ads account set up under the previous agency and then it's impossible to get that data. Now, yes, you can create a new account, but you lose all of that history from the previous account, so you're starting from scratch. Your Google Business Profile. Again, all of these things can be transferred, but it becomes a problem at times when you don't own these assets. So we highly recommend anything to do with your website, anything to do with your Google properties, that you are the owner of those properties.
Yeah, otherwise you'll get held hostage. Whenever we take over from a previous agency, I'm literally going through this right now, not in the legal space, but in the HVAC space. A friend of mine's dad owns an HVAC business, and his current agency is holding his entire website hostage because they're like, oh, like your website's on our hosting account. And like this poor guy is 65 years old, he doesn't know what that means. And I'm like, yo, like getting that out of the hosting account is the easiest thing in the whole world. Hosting is basically like the monthly fee that you pay to the internet to have your website live, right? So you should have your own hosting account. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But again, these are concepts that you need to know, because if you're talking to an agency and they're like, oh, you got to pay for hosting and this and that, like that should be a red flag. You don't have to pay for hosting. Set up your own hosting, own it. That way, when you do, and if you do move across agencies or bring people in-house, you don't have to go through this whole pain in the butt process of getting things transferred out. It's really, really important that you own that. And it might sound complex, but again, this is why we're going through this, because it's a very important concept that you need to understand. You need to have your own hosting set up, and your domain should be inside of that. So real quick too, just on web design versus web development, I think this is an important touch point here, because a lot of the times when you're getting a quote for a website, or you have to build a website, they're throwing all these different things at you, and it's probably going over your head. Just real quick, there's really two parts as we are right now in almost 2026 when it comes to getting a website live. There's the web design portion of it and the web development portion. Web design is the look, the feel, the colors, the fonts, the imagery, the content, right? You design that into a platform like Photoshop or Figma that we'll talk a little bit about in a second. And then once you have that done, then you need to actually lay code to it. That's what web development is. So it's a two-part process, and it's two different skill sets. It's a designer and a developer in order to put those two things together. Now, there are some platforms like Webflow that are more designer friendly, where a designer can actually design into the platform without development. But we're gonna recommend that you build on WordPress, which is the next one here. WordPress is what's called a CMS, content management system. So you design it, and then you're gonna build it into a CMS. We recommend WordPress. Caesar, talk a little bit about WordPress and why we like WordPress so much and why we still recommend it after so many years.
Yeah, the biggest thing with WordPress is the flexibility. So you mentioned some of the tools, Webflow being one of them, that you can essentially design and build simultaneously. Another thing is tools like Squarespace that allow, it's basically a drag and drop module. The thing is, you get very restricted in those platforms. So with WordPress, it's very customizable. You can use things like plugins to install additional functionality. And the biggest thing too is that it allows you to grow and scale over time, and it's easy to find WordPress developers. With some of these other tools, for example, Squarespace, you're confined to using their code. So it's not like you can go into the code base and adjust things and make things different. You're sort of confined to whatever it is that they're offering, which in a lot of cases, it's fine. So it's not to say that you only have to use WordPress and that's it. But we recommend WordPress because of that, because it offers that flexibility for you to customize and scale and grow with your law firm.
Yeah, and later on in the training, I'm going to do kind of a behind the scenes of how to use WordPress, just a quick deep dive tutorial for you so you know. It's a little bit confusing at first, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes second nature, and then you have control over your website. I think that's so important. Like your website is such an important asset. You need to know how to manipulate and control it. Not necessarily, again, like change a ton of stuff, but like change content, update pictures. If you have to pay an agency for it, you're getting bent over a barrel, pardon my French. Okay, so let's talk quickly about the core website layout, must-have pages, and this is a very rudimentary architecture that we're gonna walk through in a second. Again, this is important if you're just getting started building your first website. This is gonna save you so much time and money, because if you try and go to a web agency or even a freelance designer and you're like, hey, I'm a lawyer, I need a website, they're not going to know where to start. They're going to overcharge you. They're going to overscope the project. This is going to give you the foundation to, again, if you want to go hire somebody else, you give them the documents that we're going to give you here, and it's going to be much cheaper, much easier for you. So in terms of must-have pages, this is the bare minimum. There are some other things that you'd want to put on here, and we're going to go through a deep dive in each one of these in just a second. But obviously you need a homepage, right? Homepage, and then over here, we're going to put an about page. And then underneath that too, we're going to put attorney bio pages. We'll go through the details on why these are the most important pages. And then we're going to need a location page, AKA our practice area page. They're kind of two in one. Again, we're going to deep dive in a second. Underneath that, you're gonna have all of your practice area pages. PA stands for practice area. Results page is important, and then a blog page where we can create content, and a contact page where the conversions happen. So again, we're gonna go through all these in detail and explain why these are so important. But this structure, it's very simple looking, but it's very, very, very important because we're also trying to take care of a lot of SEO criteria here while we're going through this process. Again, if you hire a web agency to do something and then you're like, hey, my website isn't performing well, and you go to an SEO agency, they're probably gonna have to go back and do a lot of the stuff over. We have to do it all the time. So building from scratch is great because we're gonna give you the foundation where this is the proper structure that Google and AI search wants. It's also just best for user experience as well. Specifically on the practice area pages here, right? We're gonna get into the details of like multi-location, multi-practice areas, but every single practice area, if you think about personal injury or family law, that's the umbrella practice area, right? So these are underneath that, there's gonna be sub-practice areas. So if we're looking at family, it's like divorce, high net worth divorce, child custody. If it's personal injury, there's car accident, motorcycle accident, slip and fall, nursing home, right? Those are all sub-practice areas. Now, it says location up here because for every location, physical office location that you should have a corresponding set of practice area page with it. So if you're in Miami, this would be Miami personal injury attorney. Underneath that would be Miami car accident, Miami slip and fall, etc. And if you're in multiple locations, if you're in Miami, Boca, Fort Lauderdale, you're gonna have Miami personal injury, Boca personal injury, Fort Lauderdale personal injury, and then all the corresponding practice area pages underneath that. It's very, very important from an SEO structure point of view. We'll talk about more on that why. And then the final piece here, we're gonna give you some design and div templates. I've actually got a Figma file that we're gonna give to you inside of the platform. That's gonna save you a ton of time and a ton of money in terms of getting this stuff.